This is Aeternum Radio, broadcasting from the peaks of Shattered Mountain to the New World.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Aeternum Radio. I am your host Slacker, joined by my two co-hosts Big Papa.
Howdy.
And Ruko.
Hey everybody.
And today we are super excited to chat with you guys. We are done with the open beta. We did it. We got through. We're going to talk a little bit more.
Was it that bad? I mean, was it something we needed to get through? I don't.
It was exciting. It was tough to get back to my computer after my workday today, flip it on, and realize I can't play.
Your character was gone?
Can't play. Yeah, nothing
sad.
exists anymore. And they even took down the forums just a couple of hours ago. So even all the scrolling through to see all the terrible, terrible comments everybody was making about how horrible it was, gone.
I don't understand why they took the forums down. That seemed unnecessary, but
well, they took it down
whatever.
in between each. I think they refresh it between each. Like they had forums for the alpha and then for the closed beta and then for the open.
Couldn't they have just made separate categories and kept them up? You know, I don't know.
Probably, but I
make
think
them read only. It would have been interesting to refer back to them.
Yeah,
like Slacker said, they don't want people to see all the terrible comments. Okay, can't blame them that much, I guess. But
well, you can listen to this podcast unedited by watching us on Twitch at The Slacker Project or by joining us on our Discord. There will be a link to that in the description of this podcast. Aeternum Radio is available wherever podcasts can be heard, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and even over on YouTube. And today, we are going to go over quite a few things. We'll start with our New World news, talk about our feature review, which will be the hot topic of PvP scaling, and then we're going to go through an opinion segment talking about if New World is really ready to be released. So that is where we are at today. So let's just dive in. Let's get started with the news. Open beta is over. That's the news, right? Not a ton else happening other than, guys, what was your reaction? How did you like the open beta? Give me your thoughts.
well, I had fun. I mean, I played probably only like 10-15 hours. I didn't play a ton, but it was just good to get in there again and try out some new weapon builds and finally figure out what hemp looks like, since that was a real struggle for me. Yeah. But yeah, it's good. Well, we'll probably share more of the details when we get to that segment, but there were definitely some patch note updates that some people weren't particularly happy about.
Yeah.
And but overall, I mean, nothing majorly new from the open beta. So
yeah, I played even less than you guys, just because it was only the weekend and I did everything I wanted to do, and that was mostly to test the other weapons that I had never tested, because in the closed beta I only played 2 weapons. I was like, maybe I should try the other weapons during the open beta, and I did, and I'm still going to play the 2 weapons I played during closed beta for launch.
I actually think I'm going to be switching my weapons.
Yeah?
Really?
Yeah, we talked. I tried out a bunch of stuff, and I thought, oh man, I think I'm gonna do spear and bow for sure, or something along those lines. And I ended up saying, you know what? I actually really like sword and shield, and if I do sword and shield with a bow and I do medium armor, I can keep myself I can go up to a kite shield. So you kind of have a round shield, a kite shield, and a tower shield. Those are like the 3 tiers of shields, and I can get up to a kite shield with my sword and shield without ever going into heavy armor. So medium armor. So I'm going to do a medium armor build, which will be what I'm going to call I'm going to do it up in newworldfans.com, because you can make little builds in there. But do like a cavalier build, which will be focused on both dex and strength. The best part about it is that I can put a bunch of time, do a week or two, and then instead of having to roll a new character, because I was like, you know what, actually, I really want to play Life Staff and, Ice Gauntlet. I don't have to create a new character to do that. I can just go grab those weapons and shift, and all that other progress that I've been making on that character, like crafting or whatever, is still intact. Oh man, I'm really happy about that. I usually love to play alts. Like I would roll like one class for every World of Warcraft class that there was, just to play them and enjoy the flavor. And this, I'm not going to have that, but I'm really excited for the alternative.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love making alts just to try everything out. But no, and in New World, it's great that you can try everything out on the same character you created. I was gonna say that I tried every weapon, and I still love the rapier and musket. It's just such an awesome combination, and especially the rapier is quite fun to play in the evasive tree. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's just so much fun.
Now, I'm going to warn you, Big Papa. I played a bunch against Ruka. We did a bunch of duels. We sat on one night and we played maybe an hour or two of just dueling.
Oh yeah, we did
over
a couple
and over
nights
and over,
of
and over again.
just duels for like an hour or two. Yeah.
And if you remember a few episodes back, he says, I built a build to specifically counter yours. It does that really, really well.
Well, see, I dueled him as well, not nearly as much as you, but I did not duel him with rapier and musket, and so we'll have to do that.
Watch that fight.
Come launch, yeah.
Whose fault was that? Okay, you were just too scared to try out that after you got trounced
no,
with the ice gauntlet.
Oh,
I wasn't. I actually did pretty well with that, but being the lowest level, with the reduced PvP scaling.
Oh, blame it on the PvP scaling. Okay, all right.
but I did. I was gonna bring this up in the opinion segment, but the reason I ended up stopping playing was because it was just I tested all the weapons, and then it was a little too buggy.
Yeah. We'll talk about
we'll
that
talk
more.
about that a little bit, but yeah.
Well, I think it's hard to sink time into beta that's just for a couple of days, and everything's going to get wiped.
Oh yeah,
as soon as it's over.
It is,
so,
especially when it's a beta designed for specifically for stress testing. So it's short, and there's a lot of people. It's open beta.
There was a ton of people.
Oh man, it was the servers were pretty packed.
Yeah,
it actually wasn't quite as popular as the closed beta though. I did look at some of the stats on Steam. I think it hit 140,000 concurrent users at one point.
Okay.
But that wasn't. I think back in July they had about 200,000. So
see, I wonder what it would be, what the total amount of users logging in, because since it was such a shorter time, right? Well,
the other thing was this was open, right? You didn't even have to pre-order the game. Anyone could.
Well, right, but I wonder if since it was such a shorter time, you had less people logging in. Well, maybe they would be all on at the same time.
Yeah.
But because
I feel like the weekend's a pretty good time to do it.
Right.
So.
No, that's a good point. That's interesting.
Well, in case you are not aware, our release date is September 28th, and that is just a couple weeks away. It really is just a fortnight away, so we're really excited for that. In other kind of side news, so here at Aeternum Radio, we're actually running our own company inside a server that's yet to be disclosed. We initially had a server picked out and everything, and then it turns out that they changed that. And given the open beta, I am assuming that may happen again, that they'll change their server lists once more. Excuse me. But as a part of that, we have a couple of announcements in the company side, right? And Big Papa is our governor, and he's got a couple of things to share with us.
Well, the main thing is that we have a faction picked out. Let me just double check the because it was so close.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was a landslide victory for. So we did a vote within our company with the members that have joined us so far, to see which faction they preferred to play, and by far and away, Syndicate have been chosen to be the faction of choice.
Yes,
we are going to play Syndicate for launch, baby.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And Slacker, we will drink your tears for not getting Marauders. So thank you.
No, it was like of all the, it was like 66.7% of the vote. 66% of the vote.
Syndicate had 4 times the number of any other vote, so it wasn't even close.
Allow me, if you will, then, to just say.
Oh boy. Okay, go ahead.
I love the way that this has played out over the past month or two. It really has felt like there have been secret members of the Syndicate hiding within our ranks that have suddenly shown up and just thrown the whole thing for a loop. It's been very flavorful. It's been a really, really great way to have all this play out, and I'm happy to play Syndicate. I'm tolerable to play Syndicate, but I just love the way that this is thematically played out. Even, I mean, Big Papa, you were even saying like, "Oh, we're lying in wait. Don't you?
I don't know what you're talking
you
about.
worry."
I don't know what you're talking.
We told you we had people,
Worst spy ever.
doing things.
Now,
to
you
make
know,
it happen.
now that I'm looking at all the names of the votes, I do see about half of the votes are some variant of Rikoshi. So I don't.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Rikoshi
kidding.
with an I, Rikoshi with a Y.
No.
No,
Those are totally different people.
they're all unique voters in Syndicate 1, so we're pretty excited. But yeah, to recap kind of the history, during the closed beta, we played as Marauders. And then during this open beta, we, decided, hey, we'll play Covenant. Why not? Because the vote was already coming in. It was looking like it would be either Marauders or Syndicate again. And then, now we're going to be playing Syndicate. So it's going to be fun and exciting and Syndicate Supreme.
Gonna see a lot of purple.
Good.
So if you do want to play Syndicate, come join us. If you're interested in playing in our company.
If you don't want to play Syndicate, come join us anyway.
Yeah. Right. There were some people in the company that really wanted Marauders, and some that really wanted Covenant. We hope obviously they get to stick around and still play with us. But Syndicate was definitely the dominant winner there.
Okay, allow me to say something that might be just a bit of an unpopular opinion. Yeah, I feel like as much as I love New World and we were making content for it and all that good jazz, I feel like the factions themselves, I haven't felt like a very strong loyalty to one of the factions. I don't feel like they are defined or unique enough. Like, sure, they've got their different colors and they've got their different armor sets, but it doesn't feel very like Horde versus Alliance. Like, that was very like... Yeah. I felt like before I ever played World of Warcraft, I had chosen I was going to be Horde. That's where I lived. That's who they were. That was what I was a part of. That was all about that. And other people chose Alliance, which is totally fine. I haven't felt that kind of camaraderie yet. But I have certainly felt that level of camaraderie within my own company. The people that I've met and that we've talked to, shout outs to Straylight, Bad Acetron, a bunch of the other guys that we've met and have gotten a lot closer with. I'm really excited to play with these guys. I don't care if we're playing Syndicate or Covenant or Marauders. I just want to play with the guys that I'm, that have been joining our company. So,
well, what's great, and we've talked about this, is a lot of the initial members of our company that have joined before launch have come to us from hearing our podcast, and so what we tend to get like-minded individuals and in the company because of that, and it's been great. I agree with you 100%. It's been real fun getting to know some of these guys and having 100 member total in a company. We're going to want to make sure we build a solid company with solid guys and gals. So we're pretty excited for launch. And one last thing I was going to say was that going back to Covenant, Marauder, Syndicate, and faction choice, I would have been happy with any faction. I think they've done the factions really well. Even though I've said before that I don't think they needed to make factions in this game, I think it would have been really interesting to just let companies designate lines, and if you were companyless, you were like a free agent. I don't know. It would have been interesting. But with these factions, I think they've done a real good job with the theme of each one, and I think I would have been happy playing any of them.
Yeah.
No, I was Syndicate all the way. Okay. Syndicate or I was quitting. No, I'm kidding, man.
Well, if you want to play with us, you're more than welcome to do so. We are very focused on gaining our major objective, especially come release, is to get territories and be involved with wars, both attacking and defending. You want to play with us, join our Discord, and you will find a link inside our Discord to join our company. There's like this little company access page, and you react to it, and you get access to all of our company stuff, and you can get involved from there. Okay,
we are still,
with that,
just one last comment there. Sorry, we're still growing. I mean, I think our goal was to have about at least 50 members for launch, and I think we're going to exceed that. So if you're still looking for a company, we'd love to have you. So join us. Join before launch. Go to our Discord page, like Slacker said, and do that, and you'll have a spot.
Okay, are you guys ready for this? Let us talk about our feature review. And I think it's fair to preface this by discussing what has happened.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
In the closed beta, so New World has evolved a lot over the past 2 years. I had an opportunity to play in the open beta where it was just a free mad for all, open PvP, loot, nuts kind of stuff. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun. So having seen this evolution from where we've been to where we are now, comes this adjustment that they've been making from being a almost entirely PvP game to now introducing classic MMO elements like PvE content and expeditions and things like that. So it has been making this grow, but their focus has always been on PvP. And part of facilitating that was making sure that everyone could feel engaged with the content. And so when we played in the closed beta a few weeks ago, they had implemented a form of PvP scaling that essentially, when you went toe-to-toe with someone, your gear stats and scores were kind of flatlined almost, or brought more in line with your opponent, so that the fight became more skill-based than gear-based. That's the idea here. Well, they played through that, and I even had an experience. I remember I was even I was questing in First Light. I was in this cave, and this like level 43 or something showed up, and I was 23, 24, and I started fighting him, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna take this guy down, and it was like really exciting. It was exhilarating for me, because I was absolutely oblivious that PvP scaling was even a thing at this time. Joke's on me. Well, in the open beta patch notes, they make a statement. So this is coming directly from the patch notes. It says, PvP scaling has been reduced. The level difference will matter more in your encounters, meaning it will take a lot more hits for a lower level player to kill a higher level player, and less hits for a higher level player to kill a lower level player. So basically this squish that happens, this stat squish that happens when you start to engage someone, they allowed that squish not to be as tight anymore. And before I let these guys hack at it, the community became is at this time pretty dang split on whether that scaling was appropriate or not. Because now it's kind of more so like you would find in a classic MMO, where if you see someone who's a level 43 and you're a level 20, you're going to say, I got to get out of dodge, this guy's going to kick my butt. So there's a lot of arguments both for and against PvP scaling. And I have a feeling we here on the podcast are going to tilt one way, but I'm going to start by just opening up this discussion. What are you guys' thoughts on the PvP scaling as it currently stands in the game? Because the forum says, there's like these two posts that I saw that were like really popular on the forums. One was like, the single worst change in New World's lifespan thus far. It's like the worst thing, they hated it. And then other people are like, this is the best move. This is the best thing ever. This is wonderful. Don't listen to anyone else. They're all just a bunch of complainers. So everyone was like yelling at everybody. And we were one great big happy family. Hashtag New World fam. We were making it happen. But it got heated. It got heated. So what do you guys' take on it? What do you think?
So I'm actually a little bit split on this issue. Because, well, I'll get into it, but I think the main thing people need to remember is this is an RPG, and I mean the whole point RPG games is to get gear and get levels and get stronger, and when you have PvP scaling in it, kind of diminishes those accomplishments that you've been working at. On the flip side, right, people are saying PvP should be just all about pure scale, but I don't think that this works real well within a RPG, because again, like, what's the point of having gear and levels if you just want a pure skill based matchup? Now I still think that the gear and armor, like, there might be differences between people and levels and gear and stuff like that, but and a lower level or less geared player can still absolutely outplay and beat a higher level player. I think this is being blown way out of proportion from what I've been reading, at least on the forums and on Reddit. People are saying they were getting two-shot by people like just a couple levels. That was not my experience at all. I mean, Slacker and I, we went out, we did some world PvP, and we ran around, and we were easily able to kill people higher level than us. We were not getting two-shot like people were suggesting on the forums. My guess is actually what most people were seeing was more aligned with gear, people just having better gear in general, and the scaling from that ended up playing a bigger role than the actual level. Most people were complaining that it was a level differential, but I honestly think people were just smarter about their gear and getting geared up faster and getting better gear earlier on.
So
And-
can I
and,
touch on that just real
Go
quick?
ahead, yeah.
I want to emphasize that point too, because I think, unlike other MMOs that we've played in the past, there is a lot more here in New World at play other than your level. Not only is it your gear score, but it's how you built your character. Did you go straight dex? Have you put nothing into Constitution? You might get one-shotted if you've put none
That's
of your
true,
points into
yeah.
Constitution. And the other aspect of
Yeah.
this is that it is still a very much skill-based game. That level 60, that level 50, whatever, even if they are coming after you, they can't simply tab target you and start casting abilities. They've got to catch you. They've got to slow you. They've got to you know what I mean? You can use the terrain.
They've got to actually aim at things,
There's
right?
so
And-
much
yeah.
more at play here that I think some of the comments were like, oh my gosh, I'm getting one-shotted. The scaling is ridiculous. I can't enjoy the game. Anyone new coming into the game is going to hate it. I just think that they're not taking into account how much more is at stake. People who are not good at the game, that's not fair. People who are unfamiliar
it's fair.
with like picking their attribute scores and trying to figure out, I am playing a hybrid style here. I haven't completely committed to range, and I haven't completely, you got to make some decisions. It's an RPG, and if you want to be a jack of all trades, you can, but you have to accept you'll be a master of none. And I think that this is not a handhold that the people are having, but an issue that they're just throwing onto the developers, saying it's their fault. But
Well,
please continue.
Again, I don't think the developers are necessarily wrong to put this back in line with an RPG. You want your character to feel powerful.
Right.
I mean, how reasonable is it that if you've geared and maxed all the way up, and you're all the way level 60, you've got good gear, that you walk into a zone and a level 10 is just able to completely destroy you? That doesn't seem right to me. I understand, again, the skill thing, right? People are skilled players and things like that, but if you put in time and effort into an RPG, you should be rewarded that with a power differential. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of playing an RPG.
That's
Now,
true.
I will say, because there are counterpoints for this, and people were talking about, well, this is a game where once you hit max level, you are going to go back into these lower zones, right? So is that going to terrorize lower level characters and things like that? And yeah, I can definitely see that being a problem. One of the biggest complaints was that a lot of people started toggling off PvP even more than they were in the closed beta, and I have to agree. I mean, there were a ton of people not participating in world PvP that I wish were. At least I saw a big drop off from the closed beta. So I do think
I agree with that to an
need
extent, though. I think some of that's also the situation that we're in. I wasn't trying to grab. I'm not gonna lie. I was not trying to grab territory or do a bunch of PvP missions in the open beta, because what was the point? If I finally threw it into conflict,
there
it
could
would be 3
yeah.
days.
There could be a number of reasons for why less people were doing PvP this time around, but I mean, I do have a hunch that PvP scaling definitely had a factor in that.
Sure.
So I don't want people to be discouraged from doing PvP. So I think they need to strike a balance here. I think it needs to be tuned back a little bit from where it is now. But again, I think it's like the overall scaling people are talking about is just being blown way out of proportion. I'm not seeing the evidence for people being two-shot by someone 2 levels higher than them. That was just not happening to us.
Yeah.
Allow me real quick. Let me allow. There's a comment from our community I just wanted to put in here, because he mentions that even with, this is from Solomon Doors over on Twitch. He says, even with the PvP scaling, if you're level 60, your gear has perks that lower levels don't have. You have weapon mastery the other
Absolutely.
person doesn't have. You have more general game experience. There's still a huge advantage even with scaling. If a higher level player can't win with all that, maybe they shouldn't win, RPG or not. And that's fair.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think, like, on equal footing, a skilled player is always going to beat a non-skilled player. Even on non-equal footing, a skilled player can still beat a non-skilled player. But I think in an RPG, if you are level 30 going up against a level 10 player, you should be able to do seriously more damage to them than they should be able to do to you. Again, that's just how RPGs are built, and that's kind of the fantasy of an RPG.
Shouldn't there
right?
be that fear? I think that, like, if you
There should be
that moment when you see
yeah.
him look over the horizon and you're like, ooh, it's red, I'm gonna go after him, and you realize it wasn't that Lobby that you were picking on before, and suddenly they brought in their company mate who's 10 level, 15 levels higher, and you're like, oh fudge, now I gotta turn tail and run. That's kind of the experience, right? That's kind of the ebb and flow of a PvP world. Big Papa, you have thoughts here.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have pretty much hit everything. I was going to say, I'll just touch on things and give my opinions here. I agree that it was way overblown. First of all, in my mind, I keep thinking, welcome to the 21st century, where everything is immediately polarized. And two sides are formed, and there's no middle ground. Like that's what I think when I see all these opinions online. I rarely see anyone coming, chiming in and saying, "Hey, well, what about a middle ground here? What about a compromise?" I agree with Ruko that I don't think it was that big of a reduction in scaling. And supposedly, like Slacker said, they had much higher scaling in the closed beta, but when I played then, it didn't feel like, I don't know, it felt like a higher level still had a much better an advantage over me, even though I could sometimes hold my own. Generally, I was losing fights with higher levels. So even with that higher scaling in the closed beta, right, I didn't, I still felt like they had an advantage. Now, with the reduction in scaling in the open beta, I noticed a difference. I did notice a difference. Like, it was much harder to fight someone
for sure.
within the 5 level range, than I noticed before. Usually, back then, it was like, if you were within 5 levels of me, it's free game. If you were 10 levels higher than me, then, it was going to be a much more of a challenge, just because you had more passives that you've been able to invest in down your weapon trees. You had better gear. You had, right? All these things. So, I honestly don't think it's in a bad place where it is right now. I was fighting Slacker, for the little PvP that we did, and he had 5 levels on me and better gear. And I was able to now I only took him down once, but I was able to take him down. It took me 3 tries, right? but I was able to at one point.
I think it was like 8. He was
nah,
12.
no, it was like
3.
Maybe it was more like 2. I can't remember. But But I ended up taking you down, and it was possible. It was hard to do, but so there's definitely a noticeable change there. But I'm okay with that. It's like, it's an RPG. That's what I'll keep coming down to. Is it's like you want to have that progression. You want to have that. The next new thing, the next best thing for gear, and you want to feel powerful when you have made that achievement. Now there's obviously pros and cons to each side, right? Because in my opinion, when you have the scaling, I think combat is a little more realistic, because outside of a fantasy world, right? And this is a little bit more grounded in reality than other MMOs that I've played. Even with someone that's more skilled than me, like, I could still, depending on what you're doing, you could still have a chance at fighting them if you play defensively, or you fight defensively, or you get lucky, or you still have. I don't see that much of a power differential in real life, when it comes to like in an MMO where a high level is going to just absolutely one shot a low level. Like, you generally don't see that. Obviously, there could be counter arguments here, but I think, like, one complaint I've seen is with the scaling, it's nice one-on-one, but then when there's a group, right? You're going to get trounced. Yeah. And that's fine with me. That's realistic in my opinion, but if we reduce that scaling, and let's say you're a level 40 and you come across 3 level 20s, should you be able to take them on and crush them? I don't know. But at the same time, if you've gotten to level 40 and should you be that much more powerful than level 20s that you could take on all 3? So those are questions I have. And then the other thing is, I think the PvP scaling definitely incentivizes PvP more. And that's something we've talked about a lot in this podcast, where we already have you can unflag for PvP. If there's no scaling, how many more people are going to hit that button? And maybe not everyone. We'll find people that will always flag for PvP, which is awesome. But it does suck going out in the world. You're like, you just got your new set of armor. You just hit level 20. You step outside the gates. You're smiling at the sun, like, what should I do today? And then boom, a level 60 comes in and chops your head off. You know what I mean? Like, that does suck.
Yeah. Yeah, that does suck.
And then he camps your corpse, right? That sucks. But so I'm torn. I'm torn with this. I think where it's at right now is fine, though. Ultimately, I think it's not that huge of a difference, and we didn't really see what a level 60 versus a level 20 is going to look like, right? With that big of a gap. So I'm interested to see how much more powerful they'll be with that big of a gap. But I just don't think it merited as big a deal as it got. So yeah. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the matter.
Well, can I say, like, if I'm being honest, like, playing New World, both in the closed and in the open beta, combat is so much freaking fun, I almost don't even care. Like, I get this is a hotly debated topic, and I do care, but I had so much fun just playing and just engaging and taking the shots, and, it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play, and I do agree, I really would like that. If I do step out into that, gorgeous sunshine with my new level 20 armor and a level 60 is around the corner, I do not want to be one-shotted. I want to be able to make the decision, am I going to fight? Am I going to run? Is there a backup nearby? Is there some terrain I can take advantage of? I want to make those decisions. In other MMOs, the power scaling is so ridiculous. The difference between like a level 1 and a level 120, or I guess it's now a level 60, is so enormous that it doesn't matter. Like, and that's tough. It's like when you're level
you're going to
1,
get one
like
shot in that scenario.
Right.
Right, you're going to. And that is not the fun in PvP is making decisions. Is making decisions in the moment and trying to not just out-muscle your opponent, but outthink your opponent. And when you're a lower level than a higher level one, I want to be able to outwit my opponents on the battlefield. I want to be able to say, I can dodge this tree, I can get over here, then I can go prone and I can avoid you. But if you can just tab, select me, and then hit a button and boom, I'm dead.
Right.
That sucks.
So your point, you bring up a good point, because it is ultimately a skill-based game. So that level 60 still has to land their hit on you in order to one-shot you if there's that big of a power gap in as far as muscle is concerned, or the damage you're doing. So you still have better opportunities in this game to outsmart your opponent, outrun outmaneuver them, so you can get away free.
Just fundamental game design
than in other games. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So I think in my opinion at the end of the day is, like, if a level 1 wants to fight a level 60, I think it should be possible for that level 1 to kill the level 60, right? So some sort of scaling should take place to the point where it's at least possible, right? Where it's not like he's just chunking him for 0.01 damage or something like that, right? But it shouldn't be easy, right?
Yeah.
And those accomplishments and things that a level 6 player has should definitely take account. And I still think that would leave room for a skilled player, because I've seen people in action combat games do some absolutely insane things, right? Things I could absolutely never do, and can take, like, Dark Souls. I've watched Dark Souls speedrunners do no hit runs and things like that, and I'm like, I have no clue how these people do these things. I think people who are skilled at this game should at least be able to stand a chance against a higher level player, but I think there's a balance to be struck here, and I don't know. I guess I'm trying to lose my thoughts here, but yeah, I just want a low level player to actually have
a chance,
the possibility. Yeah, have some sort of chance, right? Don't get me wrong. If the level 60 player comes in to level 1, I think within 2 or 3 hits that level 1 player should be dead.
Yeah.
So if they're outplaying him, they're outmaneuvering him, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, there's still that skill base there. And it should still probably take him 30, 35 hits to kill the level 60, if not more,
Yeah.
right? So it's possible, but it's not going to be easy, and a few mistakes from the player can easily result in them dying.
So it sounds like we all agree that there should be some scaling so that it's possible, because this is a skill-based game, right? It's possible to beat a higher level character, but there should still be power differentials because of the progress you've made getting to those high levels. Whether that be, for a little bit reduced scaling, or if that mean the gear you have and the attributes you've been able to invest in, the passives you've been able to obtain through your trees, because of the experience you have. So some PvP scaling, just because we want it to be a skill-based game,
Right.
But there definitely should be some power differentials if you've attained that, and hopefully by that time, hopefully by level 60, you're going to be better than someone that's coming into the world for the first time, and with just outsmarting them. But I agree with you there. I agree.
I'm just gonna bring up this game mode in Destiny 2, and I know Jish is gonna give me a hard time later about this. But there is most of the PvP in Destiny is all scaled. But there is a playlist called Iron Banner that comes around every couple of months or every few weeks, where the power and gear levels you do have make a difference. And I kind of would like to see it more like that, because you definitely notice a power level difference when you're playing that game mode. If you're much lower, it's much harder to kill players that are higher level than you, and if you're much higher than them, it's much easier to kill them, right? So I think striking that balance is possible, but difficult, is where this needs to end up being.
I was just gonna say, I mean, this is an interesting topic, because most MMOs have some form of PvP scaling, especially, but what they end up doing to resolve this problem is they just have battlegrounds, right? So the thought came into my mind is like,
Right.
well, what
the
if
instance PvP?
Right.
Well,
We
and
have outposts.
We don't want new. I don't want new
the
world to do
complaint
that,
is
right? I want
Right.
my gear and my abilities in the world to be the same in a war, to be the same in that battle, in the battleground, so and in dungeons, it's like I want it. I don't want there to be massive scaling between instance content, but anyway, no, that's go ahead.
But I'm just gonna say, like, I still think the biggest threat people are gonna face, at least early on within the game, are just groups of people, right? I'm not afraid of people who are a few levels higher than me, and within the first few weeks, higher levels are gonna be moving to other zones. They will be coming back, but they're probably gonna be spending a lot of time in the end game zones, right? They're not going to be spending as much time in these lower level zones. I think the biggest fear you need to have in PvP, world PvP, is 3, 4, 5 men gang squads running around, chain CCing you until you're just dead.
Everyone
right?
with
Which
a
definitely happened to me. Yeah,
With an ice gauntlet.
Man. Or I had a double spear team come up to me and just absolutely obliterate me, man.
Well, see, I think group content
that's still
should be
more
rewarded
dangerous
like
than
that.
Sure.
I mean, because the question comes down to is like, okay, if you're level 60, should you be able to like have an easier chance killing a level 10, right? Yes. If you're level 60 and you go up against 3 level 40s or 3 level 20s, they should have a reasonable chance to beat you because they're grouped, in my opinion, right? Like you should.
Well, and Slacker, yeah,
you shouldn't be taking
Slacker
on
and I,
those groups.
we went around. We went around. I mean, I was like level 13, and he was like level 15, and we were going up to level 25s and fighting him and killing him. And I actually have a good clip of me finishing off a level 20 while I have less health, and he's 7 levels higher than me, and I'm still able to outmaneuver and kill him.
Oh yeah, we've all seen the clip, Ruka. We've all seen the clip.
Beautiful clip. If you haven't seen the clip, please go watch it. It's my only good clip from New World. So, but I'm saying, like, right now, the way it is, you can still absolutely kill people who are higher level than you, 7, 10 levels higher than you. So if that's your concern, I don't think you need to be too worried about it. If your concern is, can you fight a level 60 at level 20, that's probably definitely more of a concern. But yeah, anyway.
Well, I've seen a couple potential solutions for this, and some of this is even brought up in our chat here on Twitch, is is it okay? So you have these various Monarch's Bluff, Windsward, Everfall, First Light. They're areas that are specifically designed for content between the levels of 1 and 25. And then you have Cutlass Keys, which then extends from 25 to so on. And you have these other ones that start growing. What if this scaling keeps people within at least the zone's range, so that if you are, it's mentioned here by someone in our community saying, so that if you have a level 60 who walks into a level 25 area, maybe they drop down to level 30 in their stats. So there's some squish that can happen to make it happen. And that actually comes from Jish. He's listening. He wants to prove you wrong right now, Ruko.
He loves trying to do that, yeah.
I like that solution, this idea, and I've seen that, I think I saw that in the forums as well, just this idea that, okay, in order to, what we really want to do is we want to encourage new people to engage in PvP. If you've never done it before, we want you to try it. We want you to play it. We want you to flag on and go have some fun with your buddies. And there's two parts of this. One is that a lot of other games have hand-holded this experience into being instanced content. So when it becomes open world content, you have to make a lot more decisions, such as whether or not to engage, when you gotta flee, how far away you're willing to walk away from your town, before you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta run all the way back, or where you drop your camp, or your respawn points are at. A lot more decisions now have to be made. And two, you have to stat your character appropriately. So I think that you're given all this freedom. I don't want people to feel overwhelmed or stifled, but encouraged to engage with the content, to encourage them to reach out to their buddies and say, oh my gosh, this guy will not leave me alone. Is there anyone in my faction? Hey, any other syndicate members who are nearby? This Marauder is really strong, because the Marauders are awesome. I should have gone Marauders because they are just such a great faction. But I didn't. I went Syndicate.
Nobody's saying that. So,
but hey, let that encourage people to be social, to engage their company, engage their faction, build some loyalty. There's a lot of opportunities for that here, and I hope that those are encouraged by our community at large, instead of saying it's the developer's fault. Yeah. The design is terrible. Like, no, use the system, be engaged, be social, pay attention to what you're doing, and scale your character, make decisions, be a part of this living, breathing world. Don't just expect to have your hand held, and then when it's not, say, this is the developer's fault.
I will say that what I definitely don't want to see is that toggleable button for PvP to be hit, so people are toggling off PvP more often than not. So what if the PvP scaling reduction ultimately causes more people to turn off PvP, then I'd rather see changes in the reverse, right? I'd rather see more scaling, and because ultimately I'd rather have more PvP in this game, open world PvP, that's skill based and fair than seeing people turn off PvP because level 60s are ganking them too much, right? And so I think what Jish said is, I think that's a great idea for a solution to the problem. It's like, if you go to the lower level areas, you scale down, right? I keep thinking of Eve too. Like, Eve is cool because there's areas where there's NPC police, right? So right. If you go in there and you start killing low level ships, you're gonna get in trouble. And I haven't played enough Eve to know exactly the details there, but I like that there's, the further out you go, the more dangerous it gets, right? Same
but
thing
more rewarding at the same time,
right? And it's the more rewarding. And see, that's it would be interesting if you go out into those outer territories in New World, right? It's free game. It's going to be riskier. There's no scaling, right? It's power level differentials, but there's better mining options. There's better harvesting. There's better gathering things. Another idea, or another game that kind of did this, was RuneScape, right? RuneScape had just a PvP area. I don't want that. I want the whole place to be PvP, right? But they had the PvP area, and the further up you went into that area, the higher up you went, the larger the gap between you and another player could be. where you could be killed, right? So if if you're level 100 and they're level 20, right? If you go up into level 100 area of the wild, then a level 100 can kill you. But if you're closer to, the safety, then they couldn't touch you. Anyway, I think things have been implemented that we could take and try to implement here that could make this work. And I like the idea of scaling down territories. I would like even better if it was like outer territories were just scarier in general and had better rewards.
See, I'm not a huge fan of the scaling down thing for PvP because again I think it diminishes everything you've accomplished up to that point. I'd rather have a system in place that disincentivizes you, if that's a word. De-incentivizes you, yeah, to kill low level players for the heck of it. I know like vanilla World of Warcraft had like dishonorable kills, right? And I think you've
that's right.
Right. Something more along the lines like that, where you're actually going to be punished for just killing these low-level players for no reason. Don't get me wrong, I've still done it. I've been a scumbag and camped people who were lower level because I was bored. But I
it's true colors coming
I'm
through.
sorry.
Here,
Okay, I've done it in World of Warcraft. I apologize to those people.
And he'll do it in New Worlds.
I'm gonna do it in but something like that. I mean, because it's not. Honestly, if that's what's fun for you to rank up, get level 60, and then just go through the starting zones killing new players, seriously, you gotta find something better to do with your time. That's just kind of stupid and pointless. It's more fun to have an actual challenge in a PvP match and to come out on top.
Can we add something to this conversation I just was thinking of while you were talking about that?
Sure.
That I think is super relevant that no one's really talking about? Dude,
what's that?
You get good XP for killing other players.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
People are like,
really good.
It's not incentivizing me to go do PvP. I want to flag it off. I don't want to accidentally risk. What am I going to do? You get good XP if you take someone down. Good weapon XP, good actual XP, and you get a 10% bonus XP for whatever else you're doing at the time. Engaging in PvP combat is far more rewarding in New World than it was in World of Warcraft, than it was in 100%. Other MMOs.
Okay. So 2 points here. First of all, disincentivize was the correct word, Ruko. And then second of all, to kind of counter what Ruko said is like, I'll just say this again, is I'd rather have that PvP scaling in the lower level territories, even just the lower level territories, let's say. I'd rather have that if it incentivizes more people to keep PvP on, right? If you go outside of those lower level territories, yeah, it's free game, right? But maybe that would be a good solution for this, to allow people, because the main concern I see from the side in favor of the scaling is that without it, you low levels, people are going to toggle it off,
right?
And it makes it less skill based, right? It's more about and so those are the two main concerns. But the toggle off one, I can definitely get behind, right? It's like I'd rather not see people toggle that off, and I'd rather see it be more close I'd rather them squish down the levels for at least a couple territories if it means people turning on PvP more often. That's where I stand.
And it's fair.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the developers' reaction is to all this, because it was definitely a hot button issue, and I know they publicly acknowledged on Twitter they were going to look into it. So we'll see what happens. My guess is they will definitely tune it back a little bit closer to the closed beta. Whether they go fully back to the closed beta system, I don't know. But I'm not going to hate it if they do go back to that. I mean, I think the game, one way or the other, is still fun to play. It's still fun to play World PvP. I would encourage everyone to go out and do World PvP. It's a lot of fun, and like Sakura was talking about, it is a really great way to level up your weapons. I mean, I think from just a couple of bouts, I went up a couple mastery points in my weapon. Which was like, after you hit level 3, it starts taking some actual effort.
Yeah,
so
it does. Okay, I got one more thing to say to this, because the more I think about this, honestly, the more I like the idea of the 4 territories that are for new players specifically, right? Have those be the major PvP scaling, and not to the same level, right? Like Slacker said, maybe you squish down to 30 if you're higher than that, right? Or to the high, the top level of to the top end of the level range. But one other thing I thought of is it also would encourage people, right? Because another concern from the other side is, well, this is supposed to be about progression. This is supposed to be about people getting to max level, and you're discouraging that if they're scaling, right? Because sometimes, and I was seeing posts about this in Reddit, sometimes it's better to stay at a lower level so you get the cheaper potions, the cheaper things, because and your cheaper gear was geared towards you, and you still had a fighting chance against the higher levels. So maybe those outer territories, no PvP scaling, and so you're incentivized to be a higher level to go there. Otherwise it's going to be harder to deal with level 60s if you're not level 60 yourself, right? Or at least high enough or closer to the level range of that territory. So I don't know. I the more I think about it, the more I really like that idea, and I think that could be a potential solution, because
it even works thematically, because right, the kind of story that's happening here is this corruption is starting to spread, and it's kind of starting up at Shattered Mountain and started seeping out into the world. And so you've arrived here on the shores and you're setting up a home base, and now you're going to leave your home base, Everfall, Monarch's Bless, Windsward, or First Light, and you're going to go push the corruption back. So you can even have a point in the quest line where it's like, it's time to send you to waters more dangerous. Friends and foes will now be far more dangerous as you venture into Ebonscale Reach, into Morningdale, into the Restless Shore. I think that also works out really thematically. Like, it's like, okay,
that's supposed
you're now
to be more
leaving the
dangerous.
good area. We got a chance to set up our little camp here. Off you go to, man, what's that one place called? Reekwater, that's real nasty and overrun with the Lost.
And
yeah.
Think about this too. If you had the PvP scaling in the lower level territories, it would give lower level or newer companies a better chance to take over those territories, right? So
also true.
Level 60s just didn't dominate the whole map. Now I can see complaints already coming out. Like, if you are level 60, you should, right. You should be able to dominate.
In 3
right?
months, that's what's going to be anyway, right? I mean, there'll still be new people coming.
It will be kind of a moot point at that point, and then it's just going to be Gears.
Right. But I think it's a potential solution. I ultimately, I just want to see PvP not be turned off as much as possible, and I want to see. I want to see this. I want to keep it skill based as much as possible, with some power creep as you get higher level, because you deserve it. So, good luck, developers, balancing it perfectly.
I doubt they're going to do the full scale down like you're talking about, but I hope they find a way to incentivize more PvP and disincentivize or tune back the scaling, and maybe disincentivize killing low level players for just kicks or whatever, because you're bored, right? So.
Well, that's a beautiful way to tie up that segment in a nice little bow. Well done, Big Papa. Okay, let's move on to our next topic of this episode. This is our opinion segment, and open beta was an interesting 3 days. First of all, let me start by expressing my deep gratitude of the opportunity to play some more. I love the game. I love getting in there. I love the community that we've had and what we get to build for it. And New World's come a long way. Like I said earlier, from when it's first been developed till now, it's huge strides, huge. But we did a closed beta, and at the end of the closed beta, we got really excited for release, and we should be playing right now. But they decided to delay the release of New World in order to fix bugs, tweak things that they needed to tweak, fix server stability issues, and so on. In order to help stress test that, they announced another open beta. During the course of that open beta, I personally saw significantly more bugs, glitches, and other issues with my gameplay that actually left me much more frustrated than it ever had during the closed beta. I don't think I ever had any lag or any... Well, I had some lag, like when I was in the middle of a town, but I remember a few combats specifically where I started getting very frustrated. I even got tilted at one point. And I was like, I gotta log off for a minute. Or I gotta... Like, we were all on a social channel. We're just chatting, and Ruko and I are dueling. And the lag that I was experiencing was so frustrating to me that I had to stop for a minute. I had to I had to check myself, and that's on me. But what I'm worried about now is that I personally I didn't run into any ghost trees, but I still saw. I mean, we still saw NPC or NPCs that were like down underneath rocks that you couldn't get to, that got trapped in rocks. Key quest cravers trapped in rocks.
Invincible NPCs.
and
audio cutting out.
And the audio was cutting out. Wasn't that so frustrating?
Really, that bothered me a lot.
Because
that was
like
probably
the
one of the worst.
best part.
Yeah.
It reminds me, it breaks that immersion so much because they've done such a stellar job with that so far. And just so if you didn't get an opportunity to play in the open beta, some of the issues that were happening is you would maybe you chop a tree or something, and almost all the audio would mute except for like one or two things, and maybe it was like every time you hit something and the music, or maybe it was the ambient sound and every time you looted something, and that's all you'd hear until you like relogged or eventually came back or something like that. So there was a lot of issues there, almost that made me uncomfortable. So the question that I want to pose to you guys is, one, what was your experience with the open beta? Would you agree or disagree that it was better or worse? And two, do you feel that New World will be ready at release?
Yes, it was much worse than the closed beta. I don't know what they did, but it was definitely worse than the closed beta. I hit way more bugs. The lag for me was crazy, and I'm sure you were talking about me specifically with the lag issues, right? Because I was glitching around a little bit, and you couldn't hit me. Let's be real, though, I was just better at PvP than you, so that's why you're getting frustrated, right, Slacker? Okay, yeah. So no, but yeah, I mean the glitches were way worse and more impactful than they were on the closed beta, which definitely is concerning because we're 2 weeks out from launch. I felt pretty solid during the closed beta that everything was kind of ready to go, and Amazon felt differently, and they come back with this. I'm a little bit worried that it's not going to be ready by September 28th. That is rapidly coming up, and I think there were a lot of issues they need to fix. Overall, I think the game's not unplayable by any means.
No, not at all.
So I'm sure they're still going to release. You can still have a lot of fun, but the glitches are definitely annoying.
Yeah.
And I really hope they iron them out in the next couple of weeks.
The worst one that I experienced was, and I promise it's real, Ruko. It really happened.
No, I believe.
I know. I'm just so Ruko and I were doing one of our last duels, and my energy bar just completely disappeared. I couldn't roll. I couldn't do anything that would utilize the energy. It was really frustrating. And I ended up logging off. And I think that was one of the last times I played during the open beta. But that was very frustrating. It would have been even more frustrating if it was an actual PvP duel, or with another faction. So that's there's definitely some issues here. I hope with all the stress testing that they got some good analytics that they can resolve whatever issues they were running into. Why it was worse than the closed beta, I have no idea. I want to say it's because it was open to anyone and there were more people playing, but apparently that's not necessarily true. So I was more confident that this was launch ready on their original release date in August than I am now for this later date in September. So I mean that's
right.
That's too bad.
That's what was I.
But I'm still gonna play if they release it.
For sure.
And like Ruko
sure.
said, it's playable. But like I didn't understand why some of the streamers in August were complaining that this is unplayable. I was like, yeah, there were two main bugs in talking about the closed beta specifically. There were two main bugs that I ran into, and one was invisible trees, and the other was mobs not refreshing, which was fixed really quickly, well, relatively quickly, right? That was it. That was all I could remember in the closed beta, and in this one, it was rough. So. Hopefully they get that tuned up. I don't want them to extend the release date again. Honestly, I'd rather them just give us the product and let us play, and hopefully they can patch it quickly when they need to. But
yeah, I think
anyway.
I have to express, like, don't get me wrong. I understand that this is an MMORPG, one of the most ambitious kinds of video game you could possibly develop. When the game releases, I expect there to be some issues. Absolutely. It's an MMO.
Yeah.
There always will be. These games are enormous undertakings.
Honestly, any game nowadays is going to have issues. Their games are so complicated nowadays that it's impossible not to have bugs in it.
And it's got a long life ahead of it, so I'm okay that, hot fixes and stuff being able to take care of this. There have been a few, kind of thoughts that have been circulating as to why this was the case. And Straylight here in our community brings one of these up, saying that there is a chance that this was an older version that they were running, that they were specifically using to stress test the servers only. This wasn't the final version of the game. And this isn't the first time I've actually heard this rumor. The first time I heard this rumor was that...
Yeah, I think I brought that up as well.
Was that the full storyline of New World was actually removed during the closed beta. And since then has now been added in. And all the good content that they've been holding very close to the chest, so that release is very exciting, and release is very like, oh my gosh, look at all this new storyline and all these things that are now happening that I didn't see in the beta because it's now released. It's kind of being kept close. So to have the most live, stable version of the game, they have ran an older copy of it.
Wouldn't the closed beta have been an older copy too, then, if that was the only reason they did an older copy?
Well, they've made updates since then, right? Their initial release date would have been...
True.
Their development cycle would have been to push as hard as they could to hit... to be ready by release. And if they said, hey, all we need to do is test the servers, so we're going to send our most stable version of the game that doesn't have all this extra work in it, the last, like Straylight says, the last 10 versions of it since the last month's beta... instead of giving them all of that, we're going to give them one that's a little bit older just so we can get those servers tested to the stability that we need. It's a risky move because then you leave us being like, oh, I don't know if you guys are ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, my biggest
an
concern is
theory.
people will get turned off on launch if they have all these bugs in the game.
Especially since it's an open beta.
Yeah. I mean, people... Especially if you were trying to attract more people with an actual open beta, you didn't have to buy the game. I don't feel like this was a necessarily impressive showing with all these bugs.
Yeah.
I really I understand the theory, and I thought about that too. But as someone who works in software development, I think it would be foolish to try and test an old version of the build on the servers.
Right. That was my question.
That's not
why.
Yeah,
Why
that
do
doesn't. I don't know that necessarily holds water. I don't think Amazon did that. It's kind of strange to me that Amazon wanted an open beta to test their servers in the first place. I mean, this is a company that has entire server farms. I mean, they're like the number one server farm in the entire world. Or not world, but at least in the United States. I mean, AWS is absolutely massive.
It is, right.
Like they know what they're doing with servers. Like, so that shouldn't be a problem for Amazon. So I'm not sure, honestly, what was going on with the open beta. I don't know, maybe they were doing some underlying stress tests that we weren't aware about, just to see what would happen if they really put the servers to the max.
But even then, that's still not a good idea for an open beta, right? If you're trying to attract new players.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I don't think... Whatever they were doing, I don't think open beta was necessarily good for attracting more players. I hope people had fun with it, but... there are definitely going to be people who were turned off by the number of bugs that were in the game, and we'll see what happens at launch. Hopefully, they are fixed because I mean I'll still play. It's definitely in a playable state, but anything that breaks you out of the immersion when you're trying to go out questing,
It's just a bummer.
like especially
Yeah.
with it stinks. It's the worst. And having to restart your game in the middle of a play session, not knowing if you're gonna be able to get back in, that was an issue for me, at least in the closed beta. I know I got disconnected and put back in queue. There was no like grace period, at least for me. So that type of stuff will really suck on launch if it's happening to people, and will discourage. It'll drive their player count down, and in turn, that's gonna make each server feel less fun or less active, and I just hope that's not what happens.
The attitude I'm going to adopt for this, for myself, is going to be I'm not going to hold out and expect that, hey, when the game launches, it's going to be this much better version and there's going to be all this extra content that we didn't get before. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to assume that the game will be as good as it is during the open beta, maybe a little bit better, but that's about it at release. And even there, I'm good with that. I'm really excited to play New World. I'm really, really excited to do Territory Wars. And, we've talked a lot in the past weeks about our company's strategy. We've got to talk about games in a way that we've never really been able to do before. And the way they were saying, like, oh, what do you think they're going to do in this server? Well, let's decide on this, and let's strategize and take this area, or maybe we're going to focus on that area. Do we buy an area? Do we not buy an area? All these questions that we got to have, I'm really excited for them to come to fruition, to actually, follow Big Papa with our company and follow the charge and go conquer territories and go level up and finally get to Shattered Mountain and figure out what's going on there and learn about the corruption in a more intimate way. And who the heck is Isabella and what is she doing there? And, the guy with the hood that you see at the very beginning and he hands the box to Captain Thorpe, like, who was that? Is he already corrupted by... I just have so many questions, and that whole aspect of the game for me greatly overrides the fact that I had some audio issues or I got a little bit of lag. Does it break the immersion?
I
yes, but I'm so hyped up about all the other stuff that's been put on the table in front of me that's what I'm focusing on, and I hope that the launch goes really, really smoothly for New World. I hope it goes really successfully so lots of people buy into it and they're all really excited because I'm pumped and I want as many other people to be pumped for it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's based on the last weekend's testing, right? Based on that gameplay, I would say I don't think it's ready for release. But they need to release it. They shouldn't delay it. We've played a version of it that was fine before. That was relatively fine.
Just go back to closed beta and add the fixes.
Yeah. So I think they can knock out those little bugs and hopefully have it in a better shape for launch and then provide hot fixes for that. But yeah, I'm with Slacker. I'm excited for this game. One thing I would add to his statements there about how kind of groundbreaking this game is. I mean, there's more reasons now to build a tight-knit community within your company, right? Because there's so much more going on than just raiding or just, it's you got to control a territory. You got to keep people from taking it. You got to go take other territories, fight wars, that's really exciting things. And the strategies that come out of that are exciting because there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of depth to the game, and how you organize your company is going to be a huge key to the success of your company. So I'm excited for the game. I'm going to be playing it at launch, and I'm going to hope for the best and criticize them when they need it. But that's kind of where I'm at. So
it will be just so awesome to see this game, in 5-6 years, and see how the map is like grown. And maybe these territories like First Light and Windsward, Everfall, they're ones that like the new players fight over with their companies, and the really hot contested ones for the veteran players, or in this other island that has been introduced. There's so much excitement to see the whole breadth of this game that I'm thrilled.
Yeah,
I personally don't think the newer territories are ever going to be not of interest to high level players, and I think that's kind of unique about this game, because usually once you leave your starting zone you never go back in an RPG. I think the desire to have a territory or own a territory and run a territory as a company is always going to be there, and you're going to see high-level companies always pursuing that wherever it is in the world. So we'll see, and I think that's cool. I think it's a good idea. It doesn't mean newer companies can't take control. Just I don't know. I don't think they're going to be forgotten. So
But this MMO may be more life sucking than any MMO out there, just because you're gonna be there's something going on every day, all the
No.
time. You're gonna go to sleep and wake up, and things are gonna be shifting around, right? And that's
I think Eve sucks. the life
okay.
out of
That's
people more
true.
than anything
Never mind.
else.
Besides Eve,
I've fallen into that black hole. I barely came out alive.
well, I had a work buddy who used to play it. And he said he got so obsessed with it. He ended up having to stop, and he'll never go back. He said, "Well, who knows?" But he said he had spreadsheets. He had so much data.
Oh yeah,
from
dude.
playing that game, and anyway, it definitely sucked his life away. But I'm excited about the ever-changing world of Aeternum, right? And seeing what changes day to day, and seeing how our company responds to that, and what if our strategies work, that we employ in the game. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. You can be a part of the conversation by following at Aeternum_radio on Twitter, or joining our Discord server, which is in this podcast description. That's how you get involved in playing the game with us and joining our company. You can also mail in any questions or comments you have at eternumradiopodcast@gmail.com. And a little exciting announcement as well that I should have announced at the beginning, but I guess at the end is fine too. We are also going to be expecting special guests in our next episode. We are lucky enough to have reached out to Studio Loot. These are the guys who make the NewWorldFans.com website, which is a phenomenal resource for everything New World. You can work on your build there for your character. You can look at the databases, maps, articles, guides. They run a podcast called New World to Go. We're going to have them over here on the show. So if you've got questions for them, send it in. Let's chat with them, and let's bring them some of our own community content. And we're excited to have them on the show next week. So come play with us. Be a part of the story. We are so excited for the launch of this game. Another huge shout out to our community. We have such a great group of guys and gals who are playing with us. And we couldn't do this podcast or just do this whole show without you guys. So a huge thank you from me, your host, Slacker, along with my two co-hosts, Big Papa.
See you later.
And Ruko.
Bye, everybody.
You guys have a great night or day. We will see you next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.